The RNC files two election integrity-related formal complaints with the Wisconsin Elections Commission, alleging state officials failed to hire a sufficient number of poll workers for the April 2nd primary. Here's One America's Daniel Baldwin with more.
The Republican National Committee has filed two formal complaints with the Wisconsin Elections Commission, alleging election officials in Madison and Milwaukee allegedly denied Republican poll worker positions in the state's April 2nd primary. I want to bring in Christina Bobb, counsel for the RNC. Christina, the RNC alleges Milwaukee used more than 200 Democrat poll workers and less than 50 Republicans. It also asserts that Madison used 60 Democrats and 51 Republicans. In fact, the RNC says it submitted more than 250 names in Milwaukee and about 150 in Madison. If these allegations are true, which you're saying they are, explain in layman's terms why this is very problematic.
Well, it's problematic because you want to have parity in poll workers, in the parties that are working the polls at this election. You want to have a Democrat and a Republican working each of the stations. You want to have the equal number of representation. You want to have equal representation of the parties in this election. And so the concern that we have with this is that we submitted 250 names and less than 50 of them have actually been contacted and hired. And we're seeing a lot of Republicans get ignored in the application and in the hiring process. So we're concerned that this is one tactic that could potentially be used to exclude Republicans meaningfully from the observation and worker process in this election.
Well, Christina, in the complaint that was filed against the Madison city clerk, so that's one of the two, the RNC alleges, quote, respondents have improperly added requirements, procedures, and/or other conditions to the appointment of election inspectors process that are arbitrary, not based on the express provisions of the Wisconsin statutes, and in fact are contrary to law and have resulted in complainant Barnes and others losing their ability to serve as election inspectors. John Barnes, the complainant, says he satisfied every single requirement, yet he was never contacted. It's pretty bad if true.
Well, we're concerned. Wisconsin law requires that you have equal representation of the parties working the polls and able to work in these observers and these worker positions. And so the concern is that Republicans could be excluded from that process if, say, the application process is too strenuous on Republicans, if they're too harsh going through the process on Republicans and not even bothering to contact people and not trying to hire them, then they can say, oh, well, there weren't enough applied or there weren't enough who were qualified, and we want to make sure that that's not happening. And so this complaint is geared towards, hey, we want to make sure that Republicans that are applying to these positions are actually given a fair shake, that they have the opportunity to be a part of this process, and that this isn't an excuse to exclude Republicans from the process.
This seems like a fairly self-explanatory question, Christina, in light of all this, but can you just break down why it's important, specifically in this upcoming election in November, the most important one in our country's history, why it's so crucial for there to be poll worker balance, not only in the 7 key swing states, but just in every state as a whole?
Well, it's important for both parties. It's important for everybody to have equal representation and feel like their votes are counting and their votes are being heard. And actually, I saw something in Rasmussen recently that said a lot of Americans are very concerned about election integrity and making sure that you have equal representation. Specifically, the poll looked at about half of Americans at least want equal representation in these polling locations. And so it ensures a free and fair election. It gives people confidence in the process. It instills a type of confidence that the election was free and fair and that we can rely on the results. And if you look back to 2020, which wasn't that long ago, and you look back and we see all these Republicans that were excluded from the process, well, now you have over half of the Republican Party that questions the results of the election. And we don't want to have that. We don't want to have that going forward. So it's really important that we have eyes in there, we have the ability to observe, and we have the ability to have our workers placed in these counties to make sure that the workers it's fair. It's all fair.
People do need to have confidence that the election is free and it is fair. Counsel for the RNC, Christina Bobb, we always appreciate you spending some time with us here in studio. Thank you so much for joining us on One America News.
Thanks, Dan.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.